Have you ever given everything to family, only to be cast aside when you are no longer convenient? This grandmother's story will make you reconsider what loyalty really means. Please like if this moves you, and share with someone who needs to hear it. The rental car carried the faint scent of artificial pine and someone else's forgotten coffee, when the text message arrived like a gentle wound to the heart. 3 words that shifted everything. Change of plans. I sat in the Denver hotel parking lot, my weathered hands resting on the steering wheel, when my daughter Jessica's message appeared on the phone screen. No explanation wrapped in tenderness, no apology cushioned with love. Just those 3 words followed by, "Wedding is family only now." Sorry, Mom. Family only. The phrase echoed in the chambers of my heart, like a prayer said backwards, as if 68 years of being her mother had somehow expired, become invalid, like a library card left unused too long. I remained there for 20 minutes. Engine humming its mechanical lullaby, watching people wheel their lives toward the lobby entrance. Young couples threading their fingers together, elderly men offering steady arms to their wives, ordinary people living ordinary moments, while my understanding of my place in the world quietly rearranged itself, like furniture being moved in a dark room. The sapphire bracelet lay nestled in the gift bag beside me, a small constellation of blue stones that had witnessed 3 generations of promises. My grandmother's bracelet, worn by women who believed in the permanence of love, who trusted that some things could be passed down unbroken. I had polished each stone with the kind of reverence reserved for sacred objects, wrapping it in tissue paper soft as prayers, along with a note about family traditions that now seemed naive in its hopefulness. I had driven 12 hours through landscape that painted itself in watercolors across my windshield, desert scrub giving way to mountain pine, each mile a meditation on the distances we travel for love. My arthritis had whispered complaints through the steering wheel, and my heart had sung small songs of anticipation. Flying had become impossible since Robert's passing. Not from fear, exactly, but from a need to stay tethered to the earth, to feel the ground beneath me solid and sure. Jessica understood this about me. This new fragility that had settled into my bones like winter. She knew I had chosen the scenic route through New Mexico, stopping in Santa Fe at a little motel where I could shower safely and sleep close to the ground. She knew I had packed my medications with the careful attention of someone who understands that the body is both temple and burden. She knew all the tender choreography of an elderly woman preparing to witness her daughter's joy. The hotel room welcomed me with its studied neutrality, decorated in shades that made no demands on the heart. I arranged my belongings with the same careful attention I had given to packing them, as if order in small things could restore order to the universe. The black dress emerged from my suitcase like a shadow of what might have been. Modest neckline chosen to honor tradition, sleeves that would hide the stories my arms told in age spots and fading freckles. I had shopped for this dress with the patience of someone who understood that details mattered, that in Jessica's world, appearances spoke a language I was still learning to navigate. The dress hung now in the closet, like a question mark, elegant and untested. Beside it, my new shoes sat perfectly polished, comfortable yet dignified, broken in through evening walks around my Phoenix neighborhood, where Mrs. Rodriguez would wave from her garden and call out compliments about my fancy church shoes. Such simple kindness from a woman who asked nothing of me but friendship. I sat on the bed's edge, holding space for the disappointment to find its shape within me. It settled not as anger, but as a kind of profound sadness, the way grief does when it is allowed to be honest. This wasn't the first time I had felt invisible in my daughter's presence, but it was the first time the invisibility had been made official, stamped with the authority of a text message. Everything still had tags. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the dress across my lap, like a deflated balloon in my mind. I had been so careful about everything: the gift, the outfit, even my medication schedule, making sure I would have energy for dancing if they played the old songs, making sure I wouldn't need my afternoon nap so I could stay for the whole reception. Such detailed planning for an event I was no longer welcome at. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandson Tyler. Graham cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Tyler, Jessica's boy, 22 years old, and still called me Graham like he had when he was 5. At least someone remembered I existed. I stared at his message for a long time. Should I tell him? Should I explain that his mother had decided I was suddenly inappropriate for her special day? But no, that wasn't his burden to carry. Instead, I typed back, "Cannot wait to see you too. Sweetheart." It wasn't exactly a lie. I did want to see him. I just didn't know how to explain that it wouldn't be at a wedding. I unpacked methodically toiletries in the bathroom. Nightgown laid out on the bed. The gift bag with the bracelet placed carefully on the small table by the window. I moved with the precision of someone who needed routine to keep from falling apart. The view from my room showed a strip mall across the street. Nail salon, pizza place. One of those stores that sells nothing but phone cases and chargers. Not exactly the scenic Denver backdrop I had imagined when I had booked this place. But then again, I had thought I would be too busy with wedding festivities to care about the view. I tried calling Jessica. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Her voice bright and cheerful. "Hi, you have reached Jess. Leave a message and I will get back to you." I hung up without saying anything. What could I say? "Please reconsider uninviting your mother." I drove 12 hours and spent $300 on a hotel room. None of it would matter. Jessica had made her decision, and in my experience, Jessica's decisions were final. I ordered room service instead of going down to the restaurant. Soup and a sandwich I didn't want, but eating alone in my room felt less pathetic than eating alone at a table for 2 in the hotel dining room. The soup was too salty, the sandwich too dry, everything tasted like disappointment. That first night I barely slept. Not deeply anyway. The bed was too soft, my hips sinking into a depression that some previous guest had worn into the mattress, and the pillows were too thin for someone who needed elevation to breathe properly. The air conditioning unit under the window cycled on and off every 20 minutes with a mechanical wheeze that reminded me of Robert's breathing in those last weeks. I lay on my side, the position that hurt my shoulder least, watching the digital clock on the nightstand change numbers in glowing red segments. 11:47, 12:23, 1:15, 2:08. Each minute passing like a small stone dropped into a well gone forever. Outside, I could hear the rumble of late-night traffic on the interstate, the occasional truck downshifting, the distant wail of an ambulance headed somewhere important. Life continuing, emergencies happening. People going places they were actually wanted. Somewhere in this city, probably not more than 20 miles from where I lay staring at acoustical ceiling tiles, Jessica was having her rehearsal dinner. I pictured it based on descriptions she had given me over the past months. A private dining room at some upscale restaurant, white tablecloths, and real flowers. Wine glasses that caught the light just so. Kevin's parents probably holding court at one end of the table, talking about their connections, their travels, their portfolios. Jessica laughing at their stories, fitting in seamlessly with their world of country clubs and charity galas, making toasts about love and family and forever, clinking glasses with people who had known her for 2 years and somehow earned a place at her table that her own mother couldn't claim. Without me, I had raised Jessica like a gardener tends a single precious seedling, with complete devotion and careful attention to every condition that might help her flourish. After Robert's death, when she was 8, and still believed that love could overcome any darkness, we became a universe of 2. Those 10 years were both endless and ephemeral, filled with the small miracles of single motherhood, breakfast conversations that solved the world's problems, bedtime stories that stretched into philosophy, weekend adventures to free museums and public gardens where we learned that beauty didn't require admission fees. I worked at Southwestern Insurance with the dedication of someone who understood that every dollar had Jessica's face on it. From filing clerk to claims adjuster, I climbed the modest ladder of middle-class stability, always with her future illuminating each step. I remember the texture of those years, the pre-dawn quiet as I packed her lunch with notes tucked between sandwich halves, the late afternoon fatigue that dissolved the moment I saw her face in the after-school care window, the kitchen table algebra sessions where we puzzled through problems that seemed designed to humble parents. My Honda Civic bore witness to our shared life, its modest frame carrying us to every practice, every game, every moment that mattered to her. When other mothers arrived in vehicles that cost more than my annual salary, I would sit in my car reading library books, content in the knowledge that love, not luxury, was what Jessica would remember. I taught her to drive in empty parking lots on Sunday afternoons, my heart both proud and terrified as she navigated the wide spaces where mistakes were forgiven by concrete instead of consequence. When she graduated valedictorian and earned that scholarship to Boulder, I felt the universe had vindicated every sacrifice. Watching her walk across that stage, I understood that some victories belong not to the victor, but to those who made victory possible. We had done this together, she and I, through the alchemy of determination and devotion. I taught her to drive in an empty parking lot on Sundays after church. I stayed up helping with algebra homework. I barely understood myself. I cried harder than she did when she got her first heartbreak at 16, and when she graduated valedictorian and got that scholarship to Boulder, I was so proud I could barely speak. I watched her walk across that stage and thought, I did that. We did that together. But college is a chrysalis that transforms more than knowledge. It reshapes the very architecture of belonging. Jessica emerged from Boulder changed, not in ways that were wrong, but in ways that created distance between who she had been and who she was becoming. She came home less frequently, each visit shorter than the last, as if the gravity of her childhood home had weakened. Her conversations filled with references to experiences I couldn't share, people whose names carried the weight of privilege I couldn't pronounce correctly. She began spending holidays with friends, whose families owned ski lodges and summer homes, whose mothers had never worked outside the home, and whose fathers spoke casually about portfolios and European vacations. I told myself this was natural, this gravitational pull toward a world that matched her expanding horizons. I had raised her to reach beyond my limitations, and reaching meant sometimes growing away from the hand that had lifted you up. Yet in the quiet moments between her visits, I felt the absence of something that had once been as essential as breath. She no longer called just to share small discoveries or ask my opinion about decisions that had no wrong answers. Our conversations became functional, updates delivered with the efficiency of someone checking items off a list. When she did need something, help with a security deposit, car repairs, medical bills that surprised her new graduate budget, she approached me with a kind of careful choreography, as if my assistance was a business transaction rather than the natural flow of maternal love. I gave gladly, always, not from obligation, but from the joy of being useful, of knowing that somewhere in her busy, expanding life, I still had a role to play. I never kept track, because love doesn't maintain ledgers. I simply responded each time she reached out, grateful for any opportunity to ease her way forward into the future I had dreamed for her. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and cold, typical October weather for Denver. I could see mountains in the distance, snow-capped and beautiful. I had always wanted to see the Colorado mountains, just not like this. I showered and dressed carefully, though I had nowhere to go, old habits. My mother always said, you dress for yourself first, everyone else second. I put on the black dress anyway, pinned my grandmother's pearl earrings to my ears, applied lipstick with a steady hand. If anyone saw me today, they would see a woman who had standards, who had dignity, even if that woman had been uninvited from her own daughter's wedding via text message. I ate breakfast in the hotel restaurant after all, scrambled eggs and wheat toast, coffee that was better than I had expected. The waitress was a young woman with purple highlights in her hair and kind eyes. She called me Han and kept my coffee cup full without being asked. Special occasion? She asked. Noting my dress, my daughter's wedding, I said automatically. Then felt my cheeks burn. Well, it was supposed to be. She raised an eyebrow but didn't pry, just refilled my coffee one more time and left me alone with my thoughts. Tyler called, while I was finishing breakfast. "Graham, where are you?" Mom said, "You weren't feeling well, but I wanted to check on you before the ceremony." Not feeling well. So that was the story Jessica was telling. I was too sick to attend. Not unwelcome, just unwell. "I am fine, sweetheart," I said. "Just a little tired from the drive." "The drive? I thought you flew." I paused. "I decided to drive instead. You know how I feel about airplanes these days." He laughed. "Yeah, Mom mentioned you have gotten weird about flying since Grandpa died. But hey, at least you are here now. The ceremony isn't until 3. Want to grab lunch?" My heart swelled and broke at the same time. Tyler wanted to see me. Tyler didn't know his mother had decided I was persona non grata at her wedding. "I would love that," I said. We met at a little cafe downtown, the kind of place that serves oversized sandwiches and has local art covering every inch of wall space. Tyler looked so much like Robert, it took my breath away. Same dark hair, same crooked smile, same way of leaning forward when he talked, like he was sharing a secret. "You look great, Graham," he said, hugging me tight. "I love that dress. Thank you, sweetheart. You look pretty handsome yourself." He was wearing slacks and a button-down shirt, clearly dressed for the wedding later. His excitement was infectious, bouncing slightly in his seat as he talked about the ceremony, the reception, how nervous his mom had been all week. "She has been crazy about everything being perfect," he said, rolling his eyes good-naturedly. "Triple. Checking the flowers, making the caterer run through the menu 6 times. You know how she gets." I did know. Jessica had always been particular about things being just so. Even as a child, she would arrange her stuffed animals in precise rows, melt down if someone moved her homework from its designated spot on the kitchen counter. "I am sure it will be beautiful," I said. "Oh, it will be. The venue is gorgeous. This old mansion up in the foothills with these huge gardens. Mom said it is exactly what she always dreamed of." He paused, studying my face. "Are you really feeling okay? You seem kind of sad." I forced a smile. "Just emotional about my baby girl getting married." He nodded sympathetically. "Yeah, I get it. It is weird thinking of Mom as someone's wife again. I mean, it has been just you two for so long, you know. Since Dad died, Tyler always said it simply. Matter of factly, he had been too young to remember Robert well, but old enough to understand that death meant gone forever. She deserves to be happy," I said, and meant it. "She does. And Kevin's a good guy. You will like him." I swallowed hard. "I am sure I will." We finished lunch, and Tyler walked me back to my car. He hugged me again. "Longer this time, I will save you a dance at the reception." "Okay, Graham. Okay, sweetheart." I watched him walk away, his young stride confident and eager, and I wanted to call out to him, to tell him the truth, to explain that there would be no dance, no reception, no mother. Of the bride moment where I watched Jessica cut her cake and toss her bouquet. But I couldn't do that to him. Whatever was happening between Jessica and me, Tyler didn't deserve to have his memory of this day poisoned by family drama. Back in my hotel room, I sat in the chair by the window and thought about what to do next. I could drive home to Phoenix, pretend I had never come, pretend the text message had never arrived, or I could stay. Not to crash the wedding or cause a scene, but to be nearby just in case Tyler needed me, in case Jessica changed her mind, in case someone noticed that the mother of the bride was mysteriously absent and asked questions. I opened my purse and pulled out my phone. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a lawyer. The lawyer's office occupied the 2nd floor of a building that had witnessed decades of human decisions, its walls holding the echoes of wills, written and rewritten, families restructured by both love and loss. Mr. Morrison greeted me with the kind of professional compassion that suggested he understood the weight of the documents we would create together. "What brings you to see me today, Mrs. Henderson?" "I need to tend to my estate," I said simply. "Like pruning a garden, removing what no longer serves the whole." He nodded, recognizing the metaphor for what it was, not vindictiveness, but cultivation. I explained my situation with the same gentle honesty I had offered. "Jessica, the years of financial support given freely, the gradual erosion of connection, the wedding invitation that became a disinvitation, not as accusations, but as facts that had led me to this quiet reckoning. I want to ensure Tyler's future is secure," I told him. "He has shown me consistent love, and love should be nurtured where it grows most naturally." The paperwork reflected not anger, but intention, a trust that would support my grandson's education and early adult life, structured with the wisdom of someone who understood that financial security was a gift, but self-reliance was essential. It felt like the logical conclusion to years of giving without resentment, a final act of generosity directed toward the relationship that had remained unbroken. When I signed my name to the documents, my hand was steady. This wasn't punishment disguised as paperwork. It was simply recognition of reality. Jessica had built a life that didn't require my presence or my resources. I was honoring that independence by making it official. The afternoon light through the office windows felt different. As I gathered my things, warmer somehow, as if the act of choosing myself had invited the sun to shine more directly on my face, I drove back to the hotel and extended my stay for another week. The desk clerk, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, didn't ask questions, just updated my reservation and handed me a new room key. That afternoon, I called Tyler Graham. "How are you feeling?" Mom said. "You had to leave early because you weren't well." Had to leave early, another lie. I was accumulating quite a collection of them. "I am feeling much better," I said. "Actually, I was wondering if you would like to have dinner with me tonight. Just the two of us. I would love that. Mom and Kevin are flying out for their honeymoon this evening anyway, so I am free." We met at a steakhouse downtown, the kind of place with thick carpets and dim lighting that makes everyone look 10 years younger. Tyler was full of stories from the wedding reception, describing the dancing, the cake cutting, the embarrassing best man speech. "Mom looked beautiful," he said. "Really happy. I wish you could have seen her." I am sure she did. "She kept asking about you, though, worried that you were really sick. I told her you seemed fine when we had lunch, just tired." I nodded and cut my steak into smaller pieces, not trusting myself to speak. "Graham, are you okay? You have been quiet." I looked up at him. This young man who would somehow grown up to be everything good about his grandfather and nothing troubling about his mother. He deserved honesty, even if it was uncomfortable. "Tyler, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did Jessica ever explain why she didn't want me at the wedding?" His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean? You were sick." "I wasn't sick, sweetheart." The silence stretched between us while he processed this. I watched emotions cross his face, confusion, disbelief, then something darker. "I don't understand. I drove 12 hours to be there. I had my dress, the gift, everything ready. Then Saturday morning I got a text saying the wedding was family only now and I shouldn't come." Tyler set his fork down completely. That cannot be right. There has to be some mistake. I kept the text if you want to see it." "No," he said quickly. "No, I believe you. Why would she do that?" It was the question I had been asking myself for 3 days. Why would a daughter uninvite her mother from the most important day of her life? "I think I embarrass her," I said quietly. "I am not educated like Kevin's family. I don't dress right, talk right. I am just a retired insurance clerk from Phoenix who raised her kid the best I could." Tyler's face flushed red. "That is bullshit. Graham, sorry for the language, but it is. You are amazing. You are the strongest person I know." "Thank you, sweetheart. I am going to talk to her." "No," I said firmly. You are not. This is between your mother and me. Don't put yourself in the middle, but it is not fair. No, it is not. But life rarely is. We finished dinner in relative quiet, both lost in our own thoughts. When the check came, Tyler reached for it, but I waved him off. I have got it, honey. Outside the restaurant, he hugged me fiercely. I love you, Graham. And I am sorry she did this to you. I love you too, more than you know. That night, alone in my hotel room with its thin walls and constant traffic noise, I made a list, not of grievances or hurts, but of facts. Cold, hard financial facts that I had never tallied up before, because doing so had seemed petty, transactional. But now, with Jessica's text message still burning on my phone screen and my weekend dress hanging unworn in the closet, I needed to understand the mathematics of my rejection. Over the past 15 years, since Jessica had finished college and started her career as a marketing executive for a firm that specialized in luxury brands, I had provided what she called family support. Nothing dramatic. She always assured me, just help when things got tight, when unexpected expenses arose, when life threw them one of those curveballs that are so much easier to handle when you have a safety net. The list grew longer as I remembered. A down payment for her first apartment. $8,000. She had called me crying because the landlord wanted first, last, and security deposit all at once, and her entry-level salary couldn't stretch that far. I had driven to the bank that same afternoon and wired the money without hesitation. Car repairs when her Honda died, $3,500. The transmission had gone out 3 weeks before Christmas, and she couldn't afford to fix it and buy Tyler presents too. I had covered the mechanic's bill and told her to consider it an early Christmas gift. Help with Tyler's private school tuition, $15,000 over 3 years. The public schools in her district weren't terrible, but they weren't great either, and Jessica wanted Tyler to have every advantage. I had agreed to cover the gap between what they could afford and what the education cost, telling myself it was an investment in my grandson's future. Emergency veterinary bills when her dog got sick, $2,200. Princess, a golden retriever they had adopted from a rescue, had eaten something toxic and needed 2 nights in the animal hospital. Tyler had been inconsolable, and Jessica had called me in tears asking if I could help. How do you say no to a child's grief? Contribution toward her master's degree, $12,000. She had wanted to go back to school to get her MBA, but Kevin was still in graduate school himself, and they couldn't afford 2 tuition payments. I had offered to help because I believed in her intelligence, her potential. The wedding gift I had planned to give Jessica and Kevin, $5,000. Money I had saved specifically for this occasion, intended to help them start their married life without debt. Smaller amounts that had seemed insignificant at the time, but added up over the years. Birthday gifts that were checks instead of presents, because she had mentioned needing help with the electric bill. Christmas money that was really grocery money, contributions to Tyler's various activities and equipment needs. The new baseball glove, the guitar lessons, the laptop for school, the senior trip to Europe that all the other kids were taking. In total, somewhere around $50,000 over 15 years. Not a fortune by some standards, but not nothing either. Money that came from my teacher's pension. I had returned to school after Robert died and earned my education degree, spending my 40s as a substitute teacher, and eventually landing a full-time position at an elementary school. And from my Social Security benefits once I had reached retirement age. Money carefully budgeted from a fixed income, set aside from my grocery fund and my modest entertainment allowance, saved by buying generic brands and skipping the occasional dinner out. I had never kept track before because that wasn't what love was supposed to do. Love wasn't supposed to tally costs or maintain spreadsheets. Love was supposed to give freely, without expectation of return or even acknowledgement. But sitting there in that bland hotel room, looking at the numbers written in my careful handwriting on hotel stationery, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I had been paying for the privilege of being tolerated in my daughter's life. and even that hadn't been enough to earn me a seat at her wedding. The next morning, I called my bank in Phoenix. "Good morning, Mrs. Henderson. How can I help you today? I need to close a savings account and cancel some automatic transfers." "Certainly, which account are we discussing?" I gave her the details. The account I had set up 5 years ago, the one that automatically transferred $300 a month to Jessica's checking account. My contribution to Tyler's college fund, though he was already on academic scholarship and didn't need it. "And you would like to cancel the automatic transfer as well?" "Yes, permanently. May I ask if this is due to any concerns about unauthorized access or fraud?" "No," I said. "It is a personal decision." The whole process took less than 10 minutes. Numbers deleted from computer screens, electronic connections severed. 15 years of financial entanglement ended with a few clicks of someone else's keyboard. I spent the rest of the week exploring Denver. I wasn't ready to go home yet, wasn't ready to face the empty house and the questions I couldn't answer. Instead, I played tourist. I rode the light rail to the art museum and spent an afternoon wandering through galleries filled with paintings I had only seen in books. I drove up into the mountains and stood beside alpine lakes that reflected the sky so perfectly they looked like mirrors someone had dropped on the earth. I ate at small restaurants and chatted with waitresses who called me honey and didn't ask about my family. I bought a turquoise necklace from a street vendor and a book of Colorado photography from a museum gift shop. For the first time in years, I spent money on things that made me happy instead of things that made other people comfortable. Friday evening, Tyler called. "Graham, Mom, and Kevin are back from their honeymoon. She wants to see you before you drive home." I paused. "Did you tell her about our conversation?" "Number, but I think she knows something's wrong. She kept asking if you seemed upset when I saw you." "What did you say?" "That you seemed fine but tired." Same thing I told her before. I appreciated his loyalty, even though I suspected it was costing him. "Where does she want to meet?" "Her place tomorrow afternoon. She said she has something for you, something for me," probably guilt wrapped in an apology she didn't mean. "Tell her I will be there at 2. Jessica lived in a neighborhood where perfection was the common language. Pristine lawns speaking fluent prosperity, mailboxes that gleamed like promises. Her home reflected the same careful curation. Every surface arranged to suggest success without trying too hard. She answered the door wrapped in the casual elegance of weekend comfort. Her hair gathered in the kind of effortless style that required both money and genetics. "Mom, you look lovely. Feeling better?" "Much better. Thank you, sweetheart." She moved through her home with the grace of someone entirely at peace with their environment, preparing coffee with the same attention to detail that had once been reserved for science projects and piano recitals. We settled into conversation like two people who knew each other well, but were no longer fluent in each other's silences. When she finally mentioned the wedding, her words carried the weight of something rehearsed, as if she had practiced this explanation in the mirror. "Mom, I wanted to talk about last weekend. I know you were disappointed about being under the weather." I set my coffee cup down with the same care I might use handling something precious and fragile. "Jessica, I wasn't ill." Her face cycled through emotions like seasons changing, confusion melting into recognition, recognition hardening into something that might have been shame. "I drove 12 hours to witness your joy," I said softly. "I was sitting in my hotel parking lot when you decided that joy didn't include me." We sat with that truth between us, not as accusation and defense, but as two people acknowledging something that had been building for years, like sediment in a riverbed. "It wasn't about you specifically," she said finally. "Kevin's family has certain expectations about formal events, and I don't meet those expectations." Her silence was answer enough, and strangely, I felt something ease in my chest. Not relief exactly, but the particular peace that comes when mystery resolves itself into understanding, even when that understanding brings pain. "I see," I said, and I did see. For the first time in years, I saw clearly the space I occupied in her life. necessary but inconvenient, loved but not quite lovable enough for public display. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "I know, darling. I know you didn't." I walked toward the door, but she followed me. "I have something for you. From the wedding, I saved you a piece of cake, and there is a photo." I turned back to face her. "Jessica, I need you to understand something. For 15 years, I have given you money whenever you asked. I have been available whenever you needed me. I have put your comfort ahead of my own dignity more times than I can count." Her face was pale now, understanding dawning. "But I am done. I am done being someone you have to manage, or hide, or apologize for. I am done being the mother you tolerate instead of the mother you want. That is not fair." "Fair," I almost laughed. "Fair would have been a phone call. Fair would have been a conversation about your concerns before the wedding. Not a text message uninviting me after I had driven 12 hours. I opened the door, but paused before stepping through it. "Tyler will inherit everything when I die. The house, the savings, all of it. You are a successful woman with a new husband and a bright future. You don't need your mother's money anyway." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Goodbye, Jessica. I hope your marriage is everything you dreamed it would be." I drove away without looking back. The trip home to Phoenix took 14 hours with an overnight stop in Flagstaff. I drove through New Mexico desert and Arizona mountains, past small towns with names I had never heard and landscapes that stretched to the horizon. I stopped when I was tired, ate when I was hungry, and didn't answer my phone when it rang. Tyler called 6 times. Jessica called twice. I let them all go to voicemail. Home looked different when I pulled into my driveway Tuesday evening. The same small ranch house I had lived in for 30 years. But somehow changed, not because anything was different about the house, but because something was different about me. I unpacked slowly. Hanging up clothes I had never worn, putting away toiletries I had barely used. The sapphire bracelet went into my jewelry box, nested among other pieces I rarely wore anymore. The first voicemail was from Tyler, voice tight with worry. "Graham, please call me back. Mom told me what happened, and I am. Just please call me." The second was Jessica, formal and measured. "Mom, I think there has been a misunderstanding. Can we please talk?" The third was Tyler again. "Graham, whatever's going on between you and Mom, I want you to know I love you. Please don't disappear on me." I called him back. "Graham, thank God. I have been worried sick." "I am fine, sweetheart. Just tired from the drive," Mom said. "You guys had a fight about the will." Of course she had focused on the will, not the wedding. Not the years of feeling pushed aside. Not the text message that had started it all. "The money, we had a conversation," I said, "about boundaries. I don't understand why you had changed your will because of one argument." "It wasn't one argument, Tyler. It was 15 years of being tolerated instead of welcomed." He was quiet for a long moment. "What can I do?" "Nothing. This isn't about you. You are the one bright spot in this whole situation. I feel like I should choose sides. You shouldn't, and you will not. Your mother loves you, and she is a good mother to you. What is happening between her and me doesn't change that. But it is not fair to you. No, it is not. But fairness isn't really the point anymore. Dignity is." We talked for another 20 minutes, him trying to find a solution and me gently explaining that some things cannot be fixed, only accepted. When we hung up, I felt both heartbroken and relieved. Heartbroken because I loved my grandson more than anything and hated that he was caught in the middle. Relieved because someone in the family still saw me as a person worth caring about. The house felt quiet that night, but not empty. I made myself a proper dinner, opened a bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion, and sat on my back patio watching the desert sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. I thought about Robert, gone now 8 years, about the conversations we had had when Jessica was young about what kind of woman she might become. We had been so proud of her intelligence, her ambition, her determination to build a life bigger than the one we had been able to give her. We had succeeded. Maybe too well. She had built a life so big, so polished, so perfect that there wasn't room in it for the people who had helped her build it. But that was her choice to make, and this was mine. 3 weeks later, Tyler called with news that surprised no one. "Mom's pregnant. That is wonderful. Sweetheart, how is she feeling?" "Sick as a dog, but happy." They weren't trying, but they are excited. A grandchild I might never meet. Another generation that would grow up hearing edited versions of family history, where great-grandmother Dorothy was someone who wasn't able to be at important events, rather than someone who wasn't wanted. "I am happy for them," I said, and meant it. "Gram, do you think maybe this could be a chance for you and Mom to work things out? A new baby, a fresh start?" "Maybe," I said, though I doubted it. "We will see." But I knew Jessica well enough to understand that a pregnancy would only make her more protective of her perfect life, more determined to control her narrative. If I didn't fit before, I certainly wouldn't fit now. The lawyer called the next day to confirm that the 30-day waiting period had passed and the new will was officially in effect. "Just to be clear," Morrison said, "your grandson is now the primary beneficiary of your estate, with the trust taking effect immediately upon your death. Your daughter has been removed entirely." "That is correct. And you are comfortable with this decision?" "Completely." I hung up the phone and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the small garden I had been tending for 20 years. Tomatoes and peppers and herbs. Nothing fancy, but everything thriving in the desert heat. I had planted it the year after Robert died, needing something to nurture, something that would grow under my care. Like everything else in my life, I had built it from nothing, amended the soil, installed drip irrigation, learned about desert gardening through trial and error. It wasn't the most beautiful garden in the neighborhood, but it was mine. It fed me, it sustained me. It was enough. That evening, I called Tyler one more time. "Gram, is everything okay? You don't usually call twice in one day. Everything's fine. I just wanted to tell you something important." "Okay. Whatever happens between your mother and me, whatever stories get told or retold, I want you to remember this. I love you unconditionally. I always have, and I always will. You never have to earn it, or perform for it, or worry about losing it." His voice was thick when he answered. "I love you too, Gram. Good. Don't forget that. I will not." I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my back patio as the stars came out. The desert night was clear and vast, full of possibility and peace. Tomorrow I might call the travel agent about that cruise to Alaska I had been considering, or maybe I had signed up for the watercolor class at the community center. In the months that followed, I learned to inhabit my life differently. The way water learns to flow around stones that cannot be moved. The seasons turned with their ancient reliability, indifferent to human disappointment, teaching me through their constancy that healing, like growth, happens gradually and without fanfare. My garden became my meditation. Each morning spent among the tomatoes and peppers and stubborn desert herbs that had learned to thrive in harsh conditions. There is wisdom in plants that have adapted to scarcity. They grow deep roots, conserve their resources, bloom when conditions allow, rather than when hoped for. I began to see myself in their quiet resilience. Tyler visited more frequently, drawn perhaps by the change he sensed in me, the way people are attracted to stillness after chaos. We would sit on my back patio as the desert sunset painted the sky in colors, too beautiful for grievance, talking about his studies, his hopes, the ordinary miracles of a young life unfolding. He never asked about the inheritance changes, and I never burdened him with explanations. Love, I had learned, doesn't require justification. Jessica and I found a rhythm that honored both truth and tenderness. She would call monthly, our conversations careful but genuine, like two people learning to dance together after a long estrangement. When she told me about her pregnancy, I felt joy bloom in my chest, pure and uncomplicated by the wounds that had come before. A grandchild represents possibility, a clean slate written in the grammar of new beginnings. "I want you to be part of this baby's life," she said during one of our calls, her voice carrying a vulnerability I recognized from her childhood. "I would like that very much," I replied, and meant it completely. Forgiveness, I discovered, isn't a destination but a daily practice, like tending a garden or making tea. It requires neither forgetting nor excusing, but simply choosing each day to carry less weight, to allow space for the love that remains when resentment is released. I forgave Jessica not because she asked for it, but because forgiveness was a gift. I gave myself the gift of traveling light through whatever years remain to me. The bracelet still rests in my jewelry box, waiting. Perhaps one day my granddaughter will wear it, or perhaps it will find its way to someone else who believes in the enduring power of promises. Objects, like relationships, serve their purpose in their season, and there is peace in allowing them to follow their own paths. I think often of that text message that changed everything. How 3 words became the catalyst for a kind of awakening I hadn't known I needed. Sometimes, what feels like ending is actually beginning. What seems like exclusion is actually freedom. What appears to be loss is actually discovery. The discovery that we are more resilient than we imagined, more complete than we believed. In the evening quiet of my small house, with its familiar creaks and settled foundations, I have found something I had forgotten in all those years of giving and hoping and adjusting myself to fit other people's expectations. I have found my own voice again, clear and uncompromised, singing songs that please no one but me. And if you, sitting wherever you are, have ever felt the particular pain of being edited out of someone else's story, know this: you are the author of your own narrative. The chapters that others choose not to read do not become less true, less valuable, less worthy of celebration. Your story continues with or without their attention, growing richer and more authentic when you stop writing it for an audience that may never applaud. The desert teaches us that beauty blooms even in harsh conditions, that survival often looks like stillness, that the most vibrant flowers emerge from the most unlikely soil. You are like those desert blooms, resilient, surprising, capable of creating beauty exactly where you are planted. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who you were before the world taught you to be smaller. It is about remembering that your worth is not negotiable, your love is not currency, and your presence in this world is both necessary and sufficient, regardless of who chooses to witness it. You are enough. You have always been enough. And in the quiet spaces between heartbreak and healing, between disappointment and acceptance, between the ending of one story and the beginning of another, you will find that the most important relationship you can cultivate is the one you have with yourself. The sun rises each morning without asking permission. The flowers bloom without seeking approval. The seasons change without apology. There is profound wisdom in this natural confidence, this assumption of belonging. You belong here too, exactly as you are, with no editing required. If this story has touched you, carry its message like a seed, plant it in the soil of your own experience, and tend it with the same care you would give to anything precious and growing. Share it with someone who needs to remember their own worth. Because healing, like love, multiplies when shared, creating gardens of resilience in the most unexpected places. Your story is still being written. Make it beautiful. Make it true. Make it yours.